Do you think jokes about the Titanic submarine are in bad taste? Why or why not? Serious. One of the people on the submersible is a good friend of my wife's parents. I've never met the guy, but my wife has a bunch of times. He's the one who's been down to the Titanic 35 times before. I get it. I don't think he's a billionaire and rich people are still people with thoughts and feelings, but I also don't understand what the fuck he was doing on this thing. Some people just want that feeling of adventure. My in-laws say they are both devastated, but he always kind of lived his life on the edge. He was also in his 70s and had a good life. I feel bad for that 19-year-old. I mean, the jokes kind of write themselves at this point. The CEO is down there and he's the one that wanted to save money and skip some important steps. I'm 50-50. I think it's bad taste to joke about someone's death, but it's also bad taste to expect your average person to care as much as the media thinks we do about billionaires who fucked around and found out. I do think it's in bad taste, but I understand why people are making jokes as well. I think it's too far out of a normal person's experience to see someone who paid $250,000 to go into an unregulated vessel, to look on the wreckage of the Titanic from a screen, with the whole thing piloted with a $40 game controller with many bad reviews. It borders on satire, and is just absurd enough for a lot of people to not register that there are actual people going through something awful. It's the incredible irony. People dying because they flouted safety to visit a ship that got sunk because they flouted safety. What I find kind of shitty is the resources being spent on this and the media attention vs the refugee ship that went down. I think there are ways to be distasteful about it. But people still make jokes about world hunger and people die daily from starvation. But joking about that isn't seen as nearly as offensive. It all depends on the joke, I'd say, and who's hearing it. Nope. The rich aren't exempt from the Darwin Awards. Only one I feel bad for is the kid. Edit. Okay, I'm getting lots of comments on calling the 19Y.0 a kid. My apologies if that bothers people. I'm in my 50s and to me anyone under 25ish is a kid. I do see your points, but I thought it likely he was just joining his dumbass dad to bond or whatever and isn't as likely to be a complicit rich bitch suckass. No, I don't think they're in bad taste. I also don't think they're jokes. I think we're at a point in society where the friction between regular people and the ultra-wealthy is fostering genuine hate. And I don't think it's unjustified. Why would the average man mourn the death of a billionaire taking a frivolous expensive trip and having the hubris to ignore the risks? You spend $250K to get onto a rickety halfway McGivered Home Depot device controlled by a PlayStation controller from and expect me not to laugh when something goes wrong. The trawler full of refugees that capsized in the Mediterranean and drowned hundreds. The German captain of a nearby vessel that began saving as many as she could and now faces 20 years in Italy for aiding in illegal immigration. The fact that it's barely getting covered in comparison to the rich white guy who ignored a litany of safety protocols and knowingly took some billionaires down in a compromised sub that ran on a game controller and didn't even have seats, let alone windows rated for the depths undertaken. I think charging hundreds of thousands for a profoundly dangerous yet completely optional venture is the truly offensive thing. Seriously, they turned the Titanic into a sketchy tourist trap. Bad taste, sure. But that's sometimes what makes it funny. People make jokes about terrible events all the time. Those on Twitter who are celebrating it though, those are psychopaths. I don't mind the humor, it's the focus I can't stomach. We're obsessed with shit like this while the real problems go unattended. The titans that this craft and the Titanic were named after were defeated by the god of the sea. The planes searching for their remains are named after that god. The sheer level of hubris required to challenge the ocean in a craft named after its enemy doubtless extends beyond the choice of name. Jokes are fair game. I think being a billionaire when there's so much hunger and poverty is in bad taste. Not really. The CEO and pilot has made a lot of silly statements about safety that make this humorous. The occupants know the risks. It's sad, but no, the jokes aren't in bad taste. Joking about this situation is in bad taste, but we need to talk about it. I have worked for the kinds of men who built this sub. The public just doesn't understand, nor do they want to know that their favorite strongman, confident, genius entrepreneur innovator is just a narcissistic sociopath who got lucky. Yeah, it's bad taste, but I like dark humor. Humor makes the darkness of life bearable. No. The pilot was a fucking moron, and anyone that believed him, I'm sorry, is a short-sighted idiot. I feel bad for the 19-year-old. That's the only actual tragedy. They paid $250,000 per person to dive down to see the Titanic in a submarine 3x deeper than it was supposed to go. Jokes are going to be made. IDGAF. The CEO skimped on safety many times in media and lawsuits. The people on board signed waivers that they knew it was unsafe. They were informed and went anyway. The whole thing is absurd as the cheap Bluetooth controller they were using to steer. If I am stupid enough to spend $250K to put my head in a rapid gator's mouth and it crunches me like a cantaloupe, please meme away. Of course. Those people are stuck in a small tube knowing their air is running out and there is no escape. I can't think of a worse nightmare. I think it's bad taste to make fun of it. I also find it to be extremely bad taste that this sub has 24/7 coverage, and there's not been a damn thing on the news talking about the boat that was lost at sea with hundreds of people on it. Like, come on man, has there been any survivors found from the boat? Can't cover that some billionaires are trapped in a tin can, like the fuck? I'm just giving a billionaire the same amount of empathy he gives his underpaid employees. If they were regular people, no one would be joking. The brazen disregard for their own safety is what allows the jokes to be made. If they didn't care, why should we? Someone on Twitter commented that her father died in a high-profile mountaineering expedition and said there were so many comments on the internet about how he deserved what happened to him. She said the family see those comments, it's been 20 years and it still hurts. That's all I need to know. No one thinks about the families not getting into the stepson who is milking it right now. Compassion, folks. While I do feel for them and their families right now, they are all millionaires who agreed to do this. They knew they were risking their lives. They spent $250,000 to get into a sub the size of a minivan, steered by a PlayStation controller, to dive 12,000 feet below the surface, 11,000 feet deeper than average submarines. Just to look at a screen that displays the video feed of the Titanic, a ship that is slowly eroding away, sitting in complete darkness. You couldn't pay me enough to get into that. This might be a good opportunity for the uber rich to demonstrate proper technique for pulling oneself up by their bootstraps. It's a sad event, but it's not like it was a single mother and her 4 children dying in a terrible accident. It was people who were so rich and bored that they got in this shitty sub to see a sunken ship. It's sad, but it was kind of a dumb thing to do. A lot of comments say that the jokes are a natural reaction, but it's just not applicable to a lot of people making these jokes. Many of them don't see it as sad or tragic in the first place, so it's not a defense mechanism against something horrific. There's no sympathy or empathy whatsoever. Just ask how many people do you drive into suicide or starvation in the process of becoming a billionaire? I don't feel a shred of empathy for those people. If they want to be remembered differently, they could have thought of that earlier. I'm 18 years old looking every day at politicians destroying my country and corporations destroying my planet, with country I live near being at war, and I joke about all 3 subjects every day, and most things that happen in my life, including my mother's cancer. She's fine now fortunately, because laugh is the only thing I have left, and without it, I would be probably crying